Chapter 2. A Case Like No Other. The woman sat coiled in a velvet armchair, her porcelain skin tinged blue by the flickering police floodlights outside, like a ghostly aura. Gokul had draped his jacket over her shoulders, but she shook as if naked to a storm, her eyes darting wildly around the room. Arasu noted the details: a diamond pendant shaped like an inverted cross, a scarab ring on her left hand, and a faint smell of sandalwood and sulfur clinging to her hair, like a dark perfume. The air around her seemed to vibrate with fear. "Madame Delacroix," Gokul said, his voice hollow, like a man speaking from the depths of a grave. "Tell him what you told me." She stared at Arasu, her pupils dilated, her gaze piercing through him like a scream. "You'll think I'm mad." "Try me," Arasu said, kneeling to meet her gaze, his eyes locked on hers. He'd learned this from Priya, his late mentor. Eye level disarms, dominance reassures. But there was something in her eyes that made him wonder if he'd ever be able to look away. She clutched the jacket tighter, her fingers digging into the fabric like claws. The doorbell rang at 11:30. "Pierre, my husband." He went to answer it. I heard him laugh, say, "Enfin, you're late," like he was expecting someone. Her French accent thickened with distress, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. Then he screamed. Not pain, terror. A stray dog howled outside, the sound echoing through the night like a mournful cry. Gokul flinched, his eyes darting toward the sound, his face set in a grim mask. Arasu's pulse quickened as she continued, her words painting a picture of unspeakable horror. "I ran to the hall," she whispered. The chandelier was swinging, though all windows were closed, and it stood there, tall, but hunched, like its bones didn't fit, skin like wet ash, eyes. She pressed a fist to her mouth, her eyes welling up with tears, eyes burning, not fire, black light, like a starless night. Arasu's skin crawled as he listened, the image seared into his mind like a branding iron. The room seemed to darken around them, the shadows deepening into abysses. Arasu's voice was barely above a whisper. "Did it speak?" She shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. "No," it hissed, "not a sound. Inside my head, the maitre vient, the master comes." She trembled, her body racked with sobs. "I locked myself in the bedroom," Pierre begged. "Non, pas encore." "J obey." Then, the gunshot. Gokul turned abruptly, pacing to the obsidian wall, his reflection warping in the hexagon panels like a funhouse mirror. His eyes seemed to hold 1,000 secrets, 1,000 terrors. "Madam," Arasu pressed, his voice firm but gentle, "why call it a Jinn?" She yanked her scarf aside, revealing 3 parallel scratches down her neck, charred at the edges, like branding irons. "It left this when I slammed the door." The doctor said chemical burns. "I say claws." Arasu's mind reeled as he processed the information, the pieces falling into place like a macabre puzzle. The marks matched the hand of Glory's wax talons from the mansion's hall, a twisted signature of the creature's presence. "Did your husband collect antiques? Journals, perhaps?" Her breath hitched, her eyes darting to the side like a trapped animal. "How did you?" A crash echoed upstairs, like thunder in the night. Gokul drew his revolver, aiming at the ceiling, his face set in a fierce snarl. "We're leaving, now." Madame Delacroix gripped Arasu's wrist, her ring biting into his skin like a cold kiss. "Pierre bought a trunk last month. Letters from a British officer, Bamphobet. He said they'd make us immortals." The name hung in the air like a curse, a dark promise of eternal damnation. Gokul's gun clattered to the floor, his eyes wide with fear, like a man staring into the abyss. As they fled the mansion, Arasu couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the portrait's eyes were still trained on them, waiting for them to uncover the secrets of Reginald Bamphobet. The darkness seemed to pulse around them. The wind howled outside, like a chorus of lost souls, and in the darkness, the night had swallowed the mansion whole, its darkness so profound it seemed to have a life of its own. Gokul's cigarette cherry flared like a dying star as they stood in the driveway, the 6 black Fords now resembling a funeral cortege, their license plates glowing like lanterns in the dark. The air was heavy with an unsettling silence, punctuated only by the distant hum of crickets and the soft crackle of Gokul's cigarette. Arasu watched the smoke curl toward the moon, its edges tinged sulfur yellow by the security lights, casting an eerie glow over the scene. "Mystics, jinns, burn marks that don't burn," Gokul said, his voice low and gravelly, like the rustling of dry leaves. His laugh was a dry rasp, devoid of humor. Next, she'll say the Thienavar cursed her rice fields. Arasu said nothing, his eyes fixed on the mansion's facade, its windows like empty eyes staring back. His fingers brushed the scarab-shaped indentation on his wrist, a habitual gesture that betrayed his unease. Madame Delacroix's ring had left more than a bruise. It had left a lingering sense of dread. He recalled the way the ring had bit into his skin, the surge of unease that followed, like a cold finger tracing his spine. Gokul's words drifted into the background as Arasu's mind replayed the encounter, the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare from which he couldn't wake up. You think I'm joking? Gokul flicked ash onto the 666 license plate, the gesture almost taunting. 20 years on the force. I've seen wives bludgeon husbands over cricket bets, sons poison fathers for land deeds. Human evil. This? He gestured to the mansion, its walls looming like a specter. Madwoman's ramblings. A stray dog slunk past the gates, tail tucked, its eyes fixed on something behind Arasu. It whimpered, its fear palpable, and Arasu felt a shiver run down his spine. Then why'd you call me? Arasu asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Gokul froze, the cigarette halfway to his lips, his eyes locked on Arasu's. You hate PIs. Called me a glorified stalker last Diwali. Arasu stepped closer, his movements deliberate. But tonight you didn't go to the station, didn't call forensics. You came straight to my shitty apartment. Why? The inspector's jaw worked, his face a map of tension. For a heartbeat, Arasu thought he'd finally crack, confess about the Polaroid, the portrait's shifting eyes, the footsteps that weren't just rats. Instead, Gokul crushed the cigarette under his heel, the sound like a small explosion in the silence. Because you're the only one cursed enough to believe her. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The drive back passed in a silence thicker than the fog, the only sound the soft hum of the engine and the occasional creak of leather. Arasu memorized the cracks in Gokul's facade, the way his knee bounced at red lights, how his left hand kept drifting to his holster, as if expecting an attack. The tension between them was palpable, a living thing that pulsed with malevolent energy. Here, Gokul grunted, breaking outside Arasu's apartment, the sudden stop jolting Arasu out of his thoughts. Dawn, we'll pull Pierre Delacroix's records, shipping manifests, bank, and Bamphobet's letters. Arasu interrupted, his voice firm. Gokul's knuckles whitened on the wheel, his face set in a stubborn expression. Fairy tales don't leave claw marks. Arasu opened the door, cold air rushing in like a slap, carrying the stench of rotting marigolds. Sleep well, Inspector. Gokul sped off, tires screeching, the sound echoing through the night like a challenge. Arasu didn't move, his eyes fixed on the receding taillights. The street lamp above him buzzed, flickering like a strobe, casting eerie shadows on the ground. Shadows pulled at his feet, too dark, too deep, like mouths opening to swallow him whole. Click, he turned, his heart racing. His apartment door stood ajar, the wood seeming to glow with an otherworldly light. He'd locked it, he was certain of it. Inside, the air hummed, the same subsonic frequency as the mansion's obsidian walls, making his skin crawl. On his kitchen table lay a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age, the cover bearing a familiar insignia, a serpent swallowing its tail, an eye glaring from its scales. Arasu's breath caught as he approached the journal. The symbol seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, drawing him in with an otherworldly allure. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over the cover, before finally opening it. The pages crackled with age as he turned them, revealing handwritten notes in a language he couldn't decipher. The words danced across the page, leaving trails of darkness in their wake. Arasu's eyes scanned the text, searching for any clue, any hint of what was happening. And then, he saw it, a single sentence scrawled in red ink. The devouring begins at dawn. A chill ran down Arasu's spine as he slammed the journal shut, the sound echoing through the apartment like a death knell. He knew then that he was running out of time. The night was almost over, and the darkness that lurked within the shadows was growing restless, hungry for its next victim. The journey continues. Join us in Chapter 3 to uncover more secrets.